that you know. What do you know? 1. Ooh, it's going to be a fun Monday. Give us something. Corn. So you're saying that this is going to reflect it over the y-axis. So you're saying it's going to do this. In this class, we think about and interact with the thoughts of others, people. Dan Cole.
So in that case, what we'd see with a normal cosine graph is it starts at its peak, but with this, we'd see it start at its lowest point or its trough.
But why?
Because it reflects it over the x-axis.
Why? Why is it reflecting it over the x-axis, not the y-axis? Why is that negative reflecting it over the x-axis, not the y-axis? Why? Abby. We're listening to Abby. It changes the outputs, which are the y values, right? That -2 is a coefficient on the outputs, or the function itself. So it's going to change the y values. Right? And that actually means it's reflecting over the x-axis, because the positive y values are going to become negative, and the negative y values will become positive. So that is actually going to do a flippy thing, like, reflecting over the x-axis, not the y-axis. All right, so what else we got? Let's see. Lauren. Stretched vertically how much? Vertically by 2. Drew, can you check and see if we have any Zoom joining, just in case? What else we got? No, not you, Dan. You've already been helpful. Yes, Aiden.
The 3 shows the speed, or how many revolutions we'll have.
What do you mean, how many revolutions?
How many times we'll go around the circle.
So how many periods we'll see when?
2 pi.
What's that?
2 pi.
In 2 pi. So we're going to see like 3 periods inside of 2 pi, as opposed to just 1 period, right? It's kind of telling us that speed idea. Okay, it's a horizontal stretch or compression. All right, keep going. We need more. What you got, Ranger? Shifted 1 which way? So you're saying this is a vertical shift by 1. Sweet. Let's finish her off. The one thing we're not talking about is that. What does that look like? What does that tell us about the graph? Trace it in the air with your finger right now. Ooh, see, I'm seeing different results. So we know the parent function's cosine. So that means the basic shape would have been more like this, right? It's not symmetric about my x-axis, but you get the idea, like, right? So we know what the basic shape looks like. Which means if we start to actually generate our graph over here, I can go ahead and put these things on my graph. What would you put on first if you're going to make a quality sketch of this graph? In what order would... Drew, what you got?
We would start with the amplitude, we said.
The amplitude?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 2 up and 2 down?
Yeah.
Okay. So like 2, -2. Mia? It's shifted up 1, so you're saying I should make it 3 and -1 now. Which, as a matter of fact, if I did that, I might even put my midline on first, personally. Okay? So I know my midline is at 1, right? Because it got shifted up 1. And then we can see that kind of 3 and -1. Right? Because it's 2 up and 2 down. Next, I know this is going to get, like, I'm going to break it down. So I know the shape looked like this, right? But I also know that the blue reflects it, which means my basic shape, and I notice it's not getting horizontally shifted at all. So I notice my basic shape is going to start down there at a minimum, right? It's going to start down there, and then it's going to be kind of coming up. And so I'm just going to go ahead and sketch it on there because I can fill in the details later. Right? At least I get my shape. I can come back if I want. I can get all that. So look at my graph. Is there anything that I'm missing from having a quality sketch? Is there anything that I'm still missing from having a quality sketch? Quinn?
Can you explain the right number on the x-axis, how long it is, I guess, because it looks like that's only one rotation?
Yeah, I need something to explain what my x-axis is in terms of I need to know kind of how much I'm looking at. I need a label on my x-axis so I can get more detail. So what label might I be able to put on my x-axis? And where might you put it? I heard somebody saying, okay, so wait, how big's a period actually? Right? If we're seeing 3 periods in 2 pi, how big is a period actually now? Because somebody said, hey, you got to show more periods on your graph. And then Quinn was like, no. They just need to show that that's not 2 pi. Right? At the end of one period, it's not 2 pi. And then I heard somebody else saying, well, what's the period? So what is the period now for this function? How can I find that? Dan?
I don't know how you would find it, but I can give you what the period is.
Okay, give us the period.
2 pi over 3.
2 pi over 3. So you're saying look, I'm going, and now I'm all the way through a period. So this right here is going to be 2 pi over 3. I see that. I don't see that. So how do I know that the period is 2 pi over 3? Lauren?
We have the equation of the period equal to 2 pi.
And when we say B, what are we really talking about? The 3, which is really the coefficient on the input, right? So that horizontal stretching compressing factor, that coefficient on the input is really what I end up putting there. And I'm gonna label it that way so we don't get confused by letters, right? So coefficient on input, right? Because that's what actually horizontally compressed or stretched it. Does anybody see it in a different way? Dan?
So the way I think about it is, when we have that 3, that means the speed of our period is 3 times our 2 pi. But that would mean our duration is 1/3 of 2 pi. You can just show that by 2 pi over 3.
So something like that. It's 3 times faster, so it takes 1/3 of the amount of time. Right? We can see that 2 pi over 3 there. It doesn't matter how we view it. That is definitely how we're getting our period. So now I know that that's 2 pi over 3. And if I really wanted to label other stuff, now I could, right? Halfway through, it's at pi over 3 because that's, the upswing and then the, you know what I mean? I can kind of start to divide this into quarters, right? Quarter, 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 quarters. And I can start to see it that way.